He was called the Führer's Fireman, a man who appeared when the Third Reich was on the brink of disaster, feared by his enemies, trusted by Hitler, and both admired and despised by his own soldiers. Field Marshal Walter Model remains one of the most controversial figures of the Second World War. Was he simply a loyal Nazi general, or was he something far more complex, a soldier caught in the impossible? Today, we'll uncover the ruthless brilliance, contradictions, and ultimate downfall of the man who fought to the bitter end. Walter Model's story begins not in the chaos of World War II, but in the dying days of the German Empire. Born in 1891 in Ghent in Prussia, Model was the son of a modest music teacher. Not aristocracy, not a Prussian Junker, not part of the military elite. This would shape him. While many of Germany's high-ranking officers in World War II came from noble families and traditions of command, Model clawed his way up from a background considered far too humble for the general staff. He joined the army in 1909 as an officer cadet and served in World War I, fighting on both Eastern and Western fronts. Like many young German officers, he emerged from that war with scars, physical and psychological, but also with experience. By 1919, the Treaty of Versailles had shrunk the German army to just 100,000 men. Only the best, most ruthless, and most politically savvy officers would stay. Model was one of them. In the interwar years, he proved himself not just as a soldier, but as a thinker. He studied modern warfare intensely, focusing on how technology and speed could transform the battlefield. He wasn't the flamboyant type like Erwin Rommel. Model was methodical, practical, and utterly loyal to the army. When the Second World War erupted in 1939, Model had already made his mark as a staff officer. He served under von Rundstedt and later under Guderian, absorbing lessons in armoured warfare. By 1941, during Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union, Model was commanding the 3rd Panzer Division, and here he proved his worth. In the chaos of the Eastern Front, where distances were vast, logistics were collapsing, and the Soviets were counter-attacking fiercely, Model showed an ability few others had. He could stabilize collapsing fronts. Where others retreated, Model counter-attacked. Where others saw defeat, he saw a way to hold. His division earned him a reputation for toughness, aggression, and sheer determination. By 1942, he had risen to command the 9th Army, and this is where his legend truly began. The 9th Army became famous, or infamous, for its role at the Battle of Rzhev, sometimes called the Rzhev meat grinder. This was one of the bloodiest campaigns on the Eastern Front, costing nearly 2 million casualties in total. The Soviets threw wave after wave of men at the German positions, and Model was the man orchestrating the defense. His tactics were brutal but effective. He used camouflage, deception, and rapid counterattacks to bleed the Red Army white. He ordered trenches dug so deep and strong that they became nearly impenetrable. Soviet soldiers called it hell on earth. But there was a darker side. Model had little concern for civilian populations. Entire villages were burned in his zone of command. Civilians were forced into labor or killed. He was not a romantic, chivalrous commander. He was pragmatic, ruthless, and absolutely committed to Hitler's war of annihilation in the East. Hitler noticed. By 1943, the tide of war was shifting. After the disaster at Stalingrad, the German army needed generals who could hold collapsing fronts. Hitler began calling on Walter Model more and more, sending him into crises like a firefighter rushing to a blaze. That's where the nickname came from, the Führer's Fireman. At Kursk in July 1943, the largest tank battle in history, Model commanded the 9th Army on the northern side of the German assault. He was skeptical of the entire operation, believing the Soviets were far too prepared. He was right. The attack bogged down in minefields, artillery, and endless Soviet defenses. Model's forces were halted, and Kursk became a decisive Soviet victory. But unlike some generals who broke down under failure, Model immediately shifted gears, retreating skillfully and preventing his army from total collapse. This ability to cut losses impressed Hitler. By 1944, the Eastern Front was disintegrating. The Red Army was advancing relentlessly. Hitler sent Model to command Army Group North, then Army Group Center, then Army Group North Ukraine, all within months. His orders were always the same: hold the line at any cost. And time after time, Model did. He used scorched earth tactics, fortified cities, and aggressive local counterattacks. He was a master at improvisation, using whatever forces he had, regular divisions, SS units, Luftwaffe ground troops, even stragglers, to build defensive walls. He could conjure order from chaos. German soldiers respected him, calling him Frontschwein, front pig, because unlike many of his peers, he spent much of his time at the front lines, personally inspecting positions, speaking with officers, and even sharing hardships with ordinary troops. But the Allies were not just fighting in the east. In June 1944, the Western Allies landed in Normandy. The German defense in France was collapsing, and Hitler once again sent for Walter Model. He replaced Field Marshal von Kluge as commander of Army Group B in August 1944, just as the Allies were breaking out of Normandy. Model inherited a disaster. The German 7th Army was encircled at Falaise, and hundreds of thousands of men were in danger of annihilation. Through a desperate, ruthless effort, Model managed to save part of the army, preventing a total collapse in France. It was classic Model: arrive at the brink of catastrophe, stabilize the front, and extract what could be saved. Then came one of his most famous battles, Operation Market Garden in September 1944. Market Garden was the ambitious Allied plan to seize a series of bridges in the Netherlands, break through German lines, and end the war by Christmas. The plan hinged on speed and surprise. But it ran into one problem. The wrong man was in charge on the German side. Walter Model had just set up his headquarters in the town of Oosterbeek, right in the path of the British 1st Airborne Division. When Allied paratroopers landed, some were shocked to learn that the commander of Army Group B was practically next door. Model responded instantly. He scraped together every unit he could: SS Panzer divisions, training battalions, even convalescent soldiers from hospitals, and hurled them at the British. The result was the brutal Battle of Arnhem, immortalized as a bridge too far. The British paratroopers fought heroically, but Model's swift reaction crushed the operation. Arnhem became one of the Allies' most painful defeats of the war. Model had once again proven his reputation: flexible, ruthless, and always present where the fight was hardest. But time was running out. By 1945, Germany was collapsing. The Allies were closing in from both east and west. Hitler ordered Model to defend the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland. By now, even Model knew the war was lost. But he followed orders, fighting a hopeless campaign against overwhelming American forces led by Omar Bradley. In April 1945, Army Group B was surrounded in the Ruhr Pocket. With no supplies, no hope of relief, and his army disintegrating, Walter Model faced his final test. He refused to surrender personally, believing it dishonorable for a field marshal. He told his officers that their men could surrender, but he would not. On April 21, 1945, Walter Model walked into the woods near Duisburg and shot himself. His death symbolized the collapse of Hitler's empire, loyalty carried to the grave, a soldier who fought to the end even when the cause was long lost. To this day, historians debate Walter Model. Was he merely Hitler's servant, prolonging the war and the suffering of millions? Or was he a brilliant soldier trapped in an impossible position, doing what soldiers are trained to do: hold the line, no matter the cost? What is certain is that Model was unique. He wasn't flashy like Rommel, or aristocratic like Manstein, or political like Goering. He was the blunt instrument of German strategy, the man who stepped into disasters and somehow held them together. Walter Model's story is one of contradictions. He was ruthless, yet respected, pragmatic, yet fanatically loyal, brilliant at defense, but blind to the greater futility of the war he served. The Führer's fireman put out flames across Europe, only to be consumed by the final inferno himself. So what do you think? Was Walter Model simply a Nazi general prolonging the inevitable, or was he a professional soldier trapped by circumstance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of World War II's most complex figures, make sure to like this video, share it with a friend who loves history, and subscribe to the channel for more detailed explorations of the Second World War. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss our next episode. Thanks for watching, and remember, history is never simple. It's the choices of men like Walter Model that make it as dark and fascinating as it is.